All right, good evening, everyone. Here we are for Greek again, lesson 24. And let's just pray, and then we'll look into some matters. Heavenly Father, we give you thanks. We could come before you and ask for your help and blessing. And we commit ourselves to you for your help this evening in the name of our Lord Jesus. Amen. Shut these doors. Now, this evening, to start off with, I thought I would just talk for a minute about Greek lexicons. Lexicon is the fancy word for a Greek dictionary. It comes from the word Lego, I say. And I'm going to show you a number of dictionaries. Now, the further you get on with New Testament Greek, the more you're going to have to get yourself a decent dictionary, a decent Greek dictionary. And you can get some online ones with computer packages. But the danger of all computer packages is the software becomes obsolete. You think back just 20 years ago to the computer systems that were being used 20 years ago, our computer software packages are just so far advanced, and the speed of that transfer, the speed of that updating isn't going to slow down. There are going to be all sorts of different operating systems and software packages in 20 years' time. So it's useful just having old-fashioned books. So here is what is probably the premier Greek lexicon. It's called BAGD or BADG. Bauer, Arndt, Gingrich, and Danker. Now, this is a slightly older version of it. But this is generally considered to be the most authoritative Greek lexicon. And it's so expensive that Courant don't even stock it. I had a look on Book Depository, and let me see if I can find it for you. I'll put up Book Depository. Might not come up very well. No, not that one. Let me see if I can get it up here. Depository. And on Book Depository, it costs $250 to get yourself one of these. And I'll see if I can bring it up now on my browser here. Can you see that there now? Can you see that screen?
Yeah.
Yep.
With Bauer. So $250. Courant don't even bother selling it, because when you're selling books for that amount, you're taking a bit of a risk as a bookseller. But it's generally described as the premier New Testament Greek dictionary, and it's been updated over the years. It was originally written in German, then translated into English by Gingrich, and then updated by Danker. So it's called Bauer, Arndt, Gingrich, and Danker. So that's that one. The one that I like to use more than any other is this one here. You can't really even see the that's upside down, the name very well. It's called A Manual Greek Lexicon of the New Testament by Abbott Smith. And I'll send you through a link showing you that you can buy that for between $25 and $50. And I'll send you through some links to some other ones, other Greek lexica. And there are a whole range of them. You can look up on Kurong or on Book Depository, maybe even on Amazon, but it'll cost you a lot to post to Australia from Amazon. And let me just explain to you what the value of these is. Both of these two ones I've shown you, they act almost like concordances as well. So they will give you a word, they will give you its meanings, and then they will list virtually every New Testament reference, and they will subdivide the references into slightly more precise shades of usage of the word in different passages. BAGD, the really big, expensive one, it also gives you a lot of extra biblical literature, maybe from the Old Testament, but often from other contemporary Greek authors that show that the meaning is used in other literature as well. And the usage of them is twofold. Then you can trace a Greek word through the New Testament if you're not sure, or if you're not convinced that they are giving you the correct shade of meaning, you can trace every occurrence of a word through your New Testament, and you can adjudicate for yourself whether you think a word is being translated correctly, because oftentimes it's the context that determines the particular shade of meaning of some words. Some Greek words are ambiguous and they're a bit hard to pin down. So having all of the New Testament references listed is good, because you can do your own research. And that's why I really like this one here, the Abbott Smith one, because it's called a manual Greek lexicon. In other words, you have to manually go through the references he gives you. What he means by manual is actually that it's just a hand volume. It's a smaller volume you can hold in your hand. Manual means hand. But I like to think of it as something you have to work through. He doesn't give you all of the fine shades of meaning. You have to work it out for yourself and see which way you think the context determines the meaning goes in certain passages. So because there's less spin put on it by Abbott Smith, and you've got to do a bit more work yourself, I think Abbott Smith is a very good one. But he doesn't differ really from BAGD in his interpretation of the meanings of words very much. They're very similar. Now, there is also another Greek lexicon called Thayer's, and I haven't got a copy of it. Well, I have on my computer. I haven't got a book copy of it. It's also quite good. It's a bit dated. Some of its meanings are have now been shown to be a bit out of date, and he's also a bit liberal in his theology. But generally speaking, Thayer's is pretty good. You can get it at Kurong for a good price. Then there's one other one I'll mention, and that is Liddell Scott. Actually, it's now called Liddell Scott, Jones and Mackenzie. It is the Rolls-Royce of Greek lexicons, and it covers classical Greek, it covers New Testament Greek, it covers patristic Greek, the Greek of the early Greek the Greek fathers after the apostolic era. I was in Dublin once, and I went into a secondhand bookstore, and I saw the 2-volume version of Liddell Scott selling for £5 each. It was something like that. It was something ridiculous. And I bought these whacking big 2 volumes, and I had to put them in my backpack to take them back, because we'd gone over from England to Dublin on a cheap flight where you didn't take luggage. So I basically stuffed all of my clothes into my wife's backpack, that I'd taken for the weekend, so I could bring back this 2-volume dictionary, and it is colossal. It is huge. I also have an abridged version of it, which you can get, I think, at Koorong, but if not at Book Depository, which is a condensed version of it. So it's not two whacking great big books the size of the stone tablets that Moses brought down from Mount Sinai, but just one little book. But Liddell Scott, it also is very good, and you can't really easily get the full version of it, which I have. But you can get an abridged version of it, which is very good. So they're for Greek lexicon. Now, you can look on Koorong's page. They've got a number of other modern scholars' Greek lexicons, but they're nowhere near as authoritative, and they might be good for a pocket lexicon to keep next to you or to refer to briefly, but they're not as good for in-depth, very rigorous study. They just don't have as much information that you need sometimes to do serious study of Greek words. So they're the 4, and I would recommend you get one Greek lexicon or more to check and compare and do your studies with. And there are some cheap ones that you can get without too much trouble. So I'll send you through an email with some links to them later on this evening. Any questions about any of those Greek lexica?
No, not really. I just found the Thayers in our bookshelf.
Yeah, Thayers is quite good, and you can pick that up quite easily. It's still reprinted today because it's not bad.
I've got the George Abbott Smith lexicon here,
Yeah,
but I found it doesn't give an English Greek dictionary in it. It just gives the Greek.
yes, any decent Greek lexicon will only do that. They won't start off and give you any English. They'll just give you the Greek. Abbott Smith has got 2 other really good things. In the back, it's got 2 appendices, which I found useful when I was starting out. One, I'll show you them. Appendix A in the back gives you it gives you the irregular verbs of the New Testament. So it will give you all the irregular verbs and all their weird forms. Okay, so that's the irregular verbs, Appendix A. Appendix B, I find even more useful, and that is it gives you an alphabetical list of verbal forms. So you find some weird word in the New Testament and you can't find it anywhere in your Greek New Testament, in your Greek lexicon, because you don't know what the dictionary form of that word is. You can look it up here and it will tell you what the dictionary form of this one is. So generally, if I'm stuck for a Greek verb, it'll be in either Appendix A or Appendix B of Abbott Smith, for irregular verbs and strange forms that maybe I'm just not very familiar with this form. But there it is, and Abbott Smith will help you out. So that's another reason why I like Abbott Smith. Abbott Smith is not it's not the sort of dictionary to quote if you're writing references for some theological paper. You can mention it, but it's not the sort of premier authoritative resource, because it's a manual one, because it's a more slimmed down one. But it's very useful for just reading the Bible and doing your own study and research. So I recommend Abbott Smith, really. Thayer is good too, but Thayer is a bit dated. Some of his definitions are wrong, and Greek study has moved on. What happened was, in the early 1900s, archaeologists started finding papyri. That is, they started finding scraps of Greek written material in the sands of Egypt. And it was all written in Greek because this was the common language of the Mediterranean. And it showed that certain words were being used in ways that previous Greek scholars did not really understand. at the time of Christ. And so some of Thayer's stuff is a bit out of date and a bit wrong, but it's still pretty good and it's worth having. Don't chuck it out. It's great to have, but it's not really considered a standard lexicon anymore for research or theological study purposes. Neither is Abbott Smith. I mean, Abbott Smith doesn't have that drawback that I've talked about, but it's just not an in-depth research sort of lexicon. It's more a manual, a hand version, but it's the best one, in my opinion, for just getting into the Greek New Testament. And there are others. You can see them on Coorong's webpage. I'll send you through the link. There are all sorts of newer ones, but Abbott Smith's the best, in my opinion. Makes you do a bit of work yourself, and it doubles up as a concordance. So it's a good, and it's got good appendices up the back. Anyway, you can go for BAGD if you're willing to sink the money into it, or if you can find it in a secondhand bookshop, even better. And you might be able to find some on some sites like ABE Books or Bookfinder, and get yourself one of them as well. But it's a bit cumbersome. It's a bit huge. All right, so that's enough about lexicons. Tonight we are going to briefly mention some more categories of third declension nouns, and then we're going to do some reading of the Greek New Testament, and that will take us to John's Gospel chapter 1. So I'll bring up hopefully I've got it here. Better check first. I'll bring up our Greek vocabulary for the third declension. And we'll get into that. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yep.
All right. 2150. Okay, so last week we looked at some third declension nouns, and again my advice to you is not to try and remember all the various endings of these slightly irregular categories of nouns, but just to learn the vocabulary, the main meaning. Polis means city, so we get our word politics from that. Necropolis is a cemetery, the city of the dead, etc. Polis up the top there, and Basileus means king. We get our name Basil from that. A basilica is the name for a Greek Orthodox church. I don't know why they call it after a king, but anyway, they do. Ethnos means a nation. And these three patterns, polis, basileus, and ethnos, you can see there's some slight differences there. The stem in polis ends in I think. I could be wrong. The stem in basileus ends in EU. Again, I could be wrong. And the stem of ethnos actually ends in E. But don't worry about that. Just get the dictionary entry version of it. Polis, basileus, ethnos, learn them. And if you come across the word in a sentence, at least you know what the word is. You might not be able to tell whether it's plural or singular, what case it's in, or even what gender it is. But you'll know what the word is, and you can often get some clues from the sentence to work out what it's doing in it. So here's some more. Hierus is the word for a priest, and it's really the word for a sacred worker, a sacred man. Hierus, you can see the word temple is hieron. Archierus is chief priest. And it doesn't always necessarily mean the high priest. any of the leading priests, ruling priests, are called chief priests. Often in the New Testament we have the plural, chief priests. Grammatius means a scribe or a lawyer, and you can see that the word is very closely connected with the idea of writing, graphy, and this is what the scribes did. They wrote out scripture, but because they wrote it out so much, they were also considered in the time of the New Testament to be the authorities on the interpretation and meaning of it, and often the teaching of it. So scribe is a grammatius. Then power, the word power is dunamis. The word faith is pistis. You remember pistuo, I believe. Horos, not horos, but oros means mountain. And moises, the U there, the upsilon in the middle, actually has a, I think they call it a diaeresis, that the two dots over it, which means that you don't pronounce the omega and the upsilon as a diphthong, as one sound, but you pronounce it as two sounds. Moises. Okay. And then here are some more words left over from last week. This is the first chapter of third declension nouns. Ion means eternity or an eon, an age. Woman, gyne, we get gynecology from this word. Pous is foot, and we get a tripod or podiatry from this word. The genitive form, podos, gives us, once we lop off the os, it gives us the stem of it, which is pod for foot. Care is hand, and so we have chiropractor. Someone who does things with their hand is called a chiropractor. Kairos is the genitive. Hope is elpis, elpidos being the genitive. Charis is grace. Pyr is fire. Chema is blood. Thelema is related to the word thelo. I should have put that in the hints. Thelo means I wish or I will, I desire, I want. Thelema means will, it's the noun form. Rima means a word or a saying, and it's like logos. Some people would argue that rima means the spoken word, whereas logos refers more to the mental aspect of speaking, and there's a lot of overlap. But actually rima is quite common in the New Testament. It's nowhere near as common as logos, but it does occur quite a number of times. Rima occurs 68 times, which is quite surprising to me, but there you have it. Stoma, tostoma, means mouth. We get our word stomach from this, but obviously in Greek, the stoma is the actual opening, the mouth. And then we have two adjectives that are declined, that their endings form the same way as some of these third declension nouns. There's pleon, which means more, and there is metzon, which means greater or larger. So it's just a case of learning the vocabulary. I don't encourage you to learn the ending of these nouns unless you are actually going for some formal sort of Greek qualification. Then you've got to do it. If you just want to read the Greek New Testament, the best way to read it is not to try and remember all the different endings of all these different third declension nouns, but to read and to understand what the word's basic meaning is. That's all you need. And then as you read more and more, you'll become a bit more familiar with the genitives of them and some of the other cases that they're found in. All right, any questions from any of that? No? Good. Well, that is our vocabulary and our grammar for tonight. What we're going to do now is we're going to do some reading of our Greek New Testament, and we're going to read in John's Gospel, chapter 1. I might just bring up a new sheet with some of John's Gospel, chapter 1 on it, and you can look in your own Greek New Testaments, or you can look on this sheet. Let's see, BNT John 1. Now, let me just see here a second. 19. So, sorry, I'll just copy and paste some of this here. Sheet for us. And we'll bump it up to a nice size. Okay, and so tonight hopefully we won't get the glitchiness of last week if I'm using the PDF to see. Can you see that there?
Yep.
Okay, so we have previously read through parts of John's Gospel, chapter 1. We did quite a bit of the first 10 verses, and we did verse 14, I'm pretty sure. But we're just going to read from 19 to 28 tonight, and then over the next few weeks with a break from Greek for the next 2 weeks after this. You can read some more of verses 1 to 18, go over that, as well as going over verses 19 to 28 if you wish again. So you can just do some revision over John chapter 1, verses 1 to 28. After we come back from holidays, we will do 29 and onwards. And we'll do some of chapter 2, and we'll do some more of chapter 3. And then we'll go into 1 John. And we'll do 3 lessons in 1 John. And that will finish us off for our Greek course. But let's just do some reading here. There aren't too many third declension nouns in this passage, but we'll just read through. It's not too hard to read, I think, at this stage that we've got to in our Greek. So, Ben, you can start off for us with verse 19 there. Read it out in Greek first of all the way through, and then we'll start trying to translate it.
Okay. Kai auti estin.
Now that's hauti there. You see the rough breathing?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yep. Hauti estin he maturia tu Ioannu hote apostailan pros auton oi iodaioi ex io solumon hires kai
That's a capital lambda there.
capital lambda. Okay, luitas.
Yes. Now, obviously, the Hebrew people pronounced it Levites, Levites. And you can see why there is a difference of opinion among people about how this should be pronounced.
Hina erotisosin. Bit of a mouthful. Auton sutis a.
Good. Okay. Well, let's start working through that. What's the first word?
And.
Correct. The second word's a little bit more tricky. What is hauti?
I guess it's the it's related to she in some way.
Correct. It's feminine. And that is related to hematuria, a few words further along.
Sure, yep.
Which is feminine. So what is hauti?
Is it like a who or which?
It's not a relative pronoun. It is a pronoun. What sort of pronoun is it? It's the demonstrative pronoun this. Remember, the two demonstrative pronouns are hutos, this, and akenos, that.
Yep.
But because it's feminine, the hutos becomes hauti.
Okay.
So it's a bit of a tricky one. If it was outi instead of hauti, it would just be she.
Yep.
But
so
go for it.
Okay. And this Eston, well, that's, I guess in the context is she is.
Yep, well, just is. This is.
Is. And this is the testimony of John.
Yep. Yes.
Hote is.
Hote is when.
When, that's right. It's been a while. Epistylon.
Okay, what word do you guess that is? I mean, what do you think the dictionary, what do you think the root word here is?
It's not apostle or...
It's not apostle, but it's the same root word, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's a verb.
Yep.
What verb is it then? One of our liquid verbs we had a week or so ago. You got it right in the test tonight.
Oh, now you got me.
It is.
So it's related to apostolos.
Yes, it is.
It's a
number 7. Can you see that on the screen?
Apostello, yep.
Apostello. So apostello, this is the aorist form of it, and you'll notice that the lengthening has occurred in the middle, apestellan. It is a it is the I think it is just a normal aorist, not a second aorist. But because it's a liquid form, a liquid verb, it doesn't add the sigma in, does it? So it is just the third person plural. It does take, however, an aorist, a second aorist sort of form, in that it's not apostello, it's apostellan. So let me find the page in Duff where he gives us, very helpfully, some of these irregular verbs. Or you can look up the back of my verb chart as well. It'll be there too. But up the back of Duff, I noticed just today that he has got a grammar reference table. Where's it gone? Of no, it doesn't give it in the main index. You've got to go through all the grammar reference tables to find it. But he has a verb chart in there where he shows that stello, its aorist form is estella. So there we have it. Apestellan is the third person plural aorist of apostello. And one reason why we can tell very quickly that it's third person plural is just because of what follows in the next few words in the sentence. So have a skim forward and see if you can translate the clause here.
Before him.
Not before him, more to him.
Or to him.
Yep.
That's one of those who, which, that words. Can't never remember what they are.
The hoy.
Yeah.
No, the hoy is just the article.
But with the rough breathing.
Yes. It's just the. If it was the relative pronoun, it would have the double accent on top of it. Remember, it would have the rough breathing plus that other stroke to distinguish it from the article. But this is just an article. So what's hoyu dioi?
The Jews.
Good. So putting those 6 words together, how would you translate them? Hote apestellan pros auton hoyu dioi. What's the verb?
They send out.
Yes, and what's the subject of that verb? Who is doing the sending?
Him.
No. What's in the nominative case here? The Jews are. Hoi Judai.
Yeah, they're in the plural nominative.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the subject here. So let's translate the whole sentence to this point. And this is the witness of John when the Jews sent to him, or you could translate a bit further along in the sentence, when the Jews from Jerusalem sent to him, and you see the way the sentence is being put together. A little bit back to front in its order of words. We would say it slightly differently. But anyway, you can see what is the subject of the sentence, hoi judaioi. So let's keep on translating. What did they send to him?
Hires.
Yes, which is?
Priests.
Priests, good.
And Levites.
Good. Hina?
Hina. I don't know if we've come across that one.
I think we have. Hina means so that.
Okay.
And the next word after that is a word we haven't come up against yet, and it's the verb to ask. So that they might ask him. It's in the subjunctive mood, which we haven't learned about yet either. So that they might ask Alton,
Him.
him. And then here's the question they ask him. How do you translate this?
You. Tis was the word from last week.
Yes.
Is that like someone or something?
Yes, but when it's got that little accent on it,
Yep.
it becomes the question form. And so when it doesn't have that accent, it means someone. But when it's got that little stroke up there, just think of it as the way the pitch of your voice goes from left to right. It goes up as you say it. So it's the form like a question. Tis, and it's the word who. You, Sue, who, a. What is a?
Oh man. I've seen it heaps of times. I can't remember. It's not if.
Not if. That would be if it didn't have that funny
That
squiggly
little
accent.
thing over it. Yeah. You
It's
are.
You are. Good. So the
Yeah.
question is, what is the question in English? You, who
You.
are.
Who are you?
Good. Who are you? All right. So there's a few words in there we haven't actually met yet, but nearly 90% of them we have, which is, I think, quite encouraging. That you can read a passage of the Greek New Testament, and as long as you're pretty brushed up on what you've learned, you can recognize virtually everything there. But that's because we're getting to the point now where we've covered virtually all grammatical categories. We've covered most of the categories of pronouns, even though we're not very familiar with them yet. But that's just because we haven't read lots yet and run into them every second sentence, so that we're getting constantly bombarded with them, like this word tis at the end and howty up at the beginning. We do know these words. We have met them and we understand the grammatical categories. It's just a matter of reading lots and you become more familiar with tripping over them all the time. And after you've tripped over them 10 times, somehow magically they are embedded in your memory forever. But you've got to do the reading. It's no good just sticking around grammar books. So that's what we're trying to do. All right, verse 20, Dad, read that out in Greek and then you can start translating.
Kai homologisen, kai uk erin esato, kai homologisen, hoti,
Hoti,
hoti ego, u imi, ha Christos.
good.
And now that's an aorist, isn't it?
It is. You can see it's an aorist. It's got the sigma towards the end and it's got a lengthened first vowel. Now, I don't know if we've learnt this word yet.
Homologo
I think we might have, haven't we?
means to testify, does it?
No, it means to confess. But it's made up of two words we have met, even if we haven't learnt this one already. Homos, which means the same, and logo, which means to speak. Now, to confess is to say the same thing, to agree, to admit. So here's the word confess, and it's in the third person singular aorist. And he confessed.
And he confessed and did not Aaron is that's another aorist, is it?
It's actually an aorist middle, which we haven't learnt yet, but it's the word arneomai. Can you remember the word arneomai?
Denied
Deny.
not. Yeah. And
So The arneonmai, it starts with an alpha. That is lengthened in the aorist to the eta. Because it's an EW verb, arneomai, it adds in the eta before the sigma, and then it's got a middle ending, okay, which we haven't really looked at too much yet. We might have mentioned it in passing. So it's again third person singular. It's in an aorist deponent middle. He confessed and did not deny.
Not deny. And confess that I, emphatic, am not the Christ.
Good. So Amy is just I am. Ook is not. That, you could translate it with or without the word that. It could be being used there almost as if it were quote marks. He confessed, I am not the Christ. Or you can treat it as if it was indirect speech. He confessed that I am not the Christ. Okay. Let's go on, Ben. Verse 21. Read it out in Greek again.
Mm-hmm. Kai erotisan auton tiun su Elias e kai lege uk emi ho prophetis e su kai apec rithe. Did I get that right?
Yep.
Ooh.
Good. All right. Let's have another go.
And
now this second word is the same word that we encountered in verse 19, and it's the word asked, erotau. We haven't come across this verb yet, but
okay.
Here it's just the simple aorist third person, and they asked.
Yeah, plural, isn't it?
Yep.
And they asked him, are you not?
No.
Right? No.
T, we saw that at the end of verse 19 where it said tis e. Su tis e.
Is that who again?
It's not who. Here it's what. You notice it's got the same little accent on it, which means that your voice rises. T, in other words, it means who or what, but because it's the neuter form of tis, it means what. If it didn't have that, accent, it would mean something as opposed to someone.
Okay.
So what is tiun?
What not?
Not.
Oh no,
not,
sorry. Therefore.
Correct. What then?
Yep.
Question mark.
What then?
And you see the semicolon there? That's a question mark in Greek.
Are you Elijah?
Good. A is again you are. Su Elias. Good.
Is you are, yeah.
Yep.
And he said
no.
Sorry.
And try again.
And lege is it he said?
No, it's not he said.
He spoke?
No. It's he says. It's in the present tense. If it was said, it would be a pen.
Oh, yeah.
Now, what is happening here? This is called a historic present. Obviously, all the rest of this paragraph here, up until this point, has been in the aorist. We've got all the other verbs in the past tense. But this one here, it's in the present tense. And it's what is called the historic present. In other words, to give the writing the feeling of more immediacy, like you're really on the spot. Sometimes they just break into the present tense. Obviously, John the writer was there, but it's like, and he says, and they're getting so excited that they actually don't worry about using the past tense anymore. They're completely immersed in the situation. Okay, keep on going.
He says, I am not.
Correct.
The prophet. Are you? Or,
Correct. Again, question mark. Are you the prophet?
yep. And apokryphe.
Apokryphe is a very common word in the Greek New Testament. It's the aorist passive of apokrynomai. And it means he answered.
Okay.
And he answered. And it's one of only 5 words on the back of my Greek verb cheat sheet that I've highlighted in blue because it's so common.
Ah, okay. Ah, there you go. Yep. Under judge, so it's related to
Yep.
giving an answer.
Yep.
And he said no.
Yep. Or he answered no.
Answered no.
Good. Verse 22.
Epan un auto tis e ina apocryson domain. I've lost the screen now.
Okay. Is that it back again?
Yep, that's back now. Domain, toys, Pempasson, Hemas, T, Legase, Perry, Sautau. Sautu.
Good.
They said that's aorist of the word Lego.
That's correct. And it's the third person. Epan.
Plural third.
Epon is I said. Epen is he said. Epan is they said.
They said therefore to him.
Yep.
Question. Who are you? Who are you?
Yes. Yes. When you said question there, what did you mean by that?
Was a question mark at the end.
Of what?
After A.
That's right, but not after auto. See that dot hanging midair? That just is a colon in Greek.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, it's a question mark at the end of the second phrase.
Yep. Who are you?
So that
Apocryson is the noun form. Apocryson is the noun form. We haven't come across this word yet, but it's the noun form of apokrynomai, and it means so that an answer. Dormin, and now dormin is a verb we haven't come across yet. It's didomi, and here it's the subjunctive. We will come to the subjunctive in a few weeks' time, and it's the subjunctive is you can stick the word may in front of it, so that an answer we may give. Tois pempsassin. Now this is a.
Is that from the verb didymai? Is it?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
So we learnt last week, or we had noted last week in the vocabulary that dolken, ed dolken, is the aorist he gave. Here we have the same verb. It's a very common verb to give. Here it's the subjunctive. We may give. Now tois pempsassin.
We may give so that an answer we may give to the sending ones of us.
Correct. Now, tois pempsassin, I'm not quite sure exactly what's going on there. It looks like a perfect participle to me. I'd have to check it up. But you can see it's the word pempo, and it's an aorist or maybe an aorist participle to those sending us. Okay, let's keep on going.
And there's a question here.
No, don't say that before it. Say it at the end.
What
That makes
do
me
you
think
say?
that that makes me think you're misinterpreting that little dot in the middle of the screen.
Oh, sorry. No. What do you say concerning yourself?
Good. So T is again what? If it didn't have the little accent on it, what would T be?
Someone.
No, that would be
Something.
tis. Something.
Something.
Yes. Good. All right. Verse 23. Have a read of that, Ben.
Ephe ego phone buontos. Is that right?
Boontos. Yes.
Buontos. En te erimo. Euthun ate. Tain hodon kuriu. Kalos epin. Kathos, sorry. Epin Esaias.
Isaias.
Esaias, okay. Ho prophetes.
Now, actually, that here, Isaias, you can see it's got two little dots above the I. That's this.
Uh-huh.
That's this little punctuation mark that in Greek says that you've got to pronounce that iota as its own sound. So literally, you would pronounce this Esaias, but who
Yep.
cares? Now, this sentence here involves a quotation from the Old Testament, and you'll generally find it to be the case that when the New Testament quotes the Old, it's quoting from the Septuagint version of the Old Testament. And the Greek there is usually a little bit harder than New Testament Greek. So some of these quotes will have weird vocabulary because the Hebrew part of the Bible is the Old Testament is more than 3/4 of the Bible. And the Hebrew Old Testament is full of all sorts of things happening. There's a lot more vocabulary in Old Testament Greek than there is in New Testament Greek. And if you want to learn New Testament Greek, you've got to buy yourself a completely different lexicon, a lexicon of Septuagint Greek, because it's just so much harder. So this verse is going to be a bit harder to translate because it's coming out of Old Testament Greek. There's a lot more vocab, different words, and even sometimes different ways of saying things. The first word here, ephi, is quite common in the New Testament, but we haven't come across it yet. It is the verb femi. Fe or fi eta mu e femi, and it's another word to speak. But we haven't come across it yet, and it's in a form that we have of verb that we haven't met yet either. So don't worry about this. But we get this word femi in English. A euphemism is something said in a nicer way, and it has that word femi in there. Euphemism. So we're going to come across this word femi a little bit later on in a few weeks' time, towards the end of our course. Maybe one of the last weeks, one of the last 2 weeks. So don't worry about remembering it yet. It means he said. So keep on going from there on, and we'll find a few more difficult words in there yet.
Phone is sound or voice.
Good. Now there's no verb in here. The verb is implicit. So it's I am a voice. Now the word boontos is the word for crying out. It's a very rare New Testament word. It's a bit more common in the Old Testament. I am a sound or a voice crying out.
Yep. In the wilderness.
In the desert. Good. Euthenata means make straight.
Yep. Yeah, there's a couple of these in the notes on the bottom.
Yeah, it's just Old Testament Greek, very rare in the New Testament.
Make straight or straighten the way.
Yes.
Of the Lord.
Yes.
In the genitive. Cathos, that was in the test earlier. Which is like according as, or just
Yes,
as.
just as.
Airpen I got wrong in the test. Just as. Is it I saw?
Not I saw. It's only one of three. Can only be one of three.
I said.
Said. So just as he said.
Just as he said, Isaiah.
Yes.
The prophet.
Good. So he said, and this is John speaking. John said, I am a voice crying in the desert, make straight the way of the Lord, just as Isaiah the prophet he said.
Mm-hmm.
Just as Isaiah the prophet said. The way I remember epen is the pi or the p in the middle of it. And with lip, I just connect it with lip, and I think epen, lip, said. You might find some other way to remember these three tricky ones. The three top ones are epen, eden, he saw, and ilthen, he came. So they're very common, and you only get to know them by reading and reading and reading, and they become second nature. Okay, Brandy, verse 24.
Kai apestalmenoi isan ek ton pharision.
Good.
That's that word sending again.
It is.
Second word.
Here it's a participle.
It's a participle. And a verbal, it's a noun participle, and the sending one were from the Pharisees.
Nearly right. It's actually a passive participle here. We haven't really gone into this too much yet. So it's, and those being sent they were, that's the third person plural of Amy in the imperfect. They were of the Pharisees. So those sent were from the Pharisees, or of the Pharisees. So you recognize Isan? Yep.
Yeah.
Good. All right, to 25, Ben. You didn't get much of a break there.
We've got a good 1.5 lines here. Kai eurotisan auton kai epan auto ti un baptizes esu uk ho Christos ude Elias ude ho prophetis.
Good.
And they sent, is it?
They asked.
I said ask word again. Okay.
Yeah, same word we've come across a few times there.
Okay. Has that sort of appeared in different forms? I'm just not recognizing it.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's not a word we've come across yet. So it occurs 3 or 4 times in this. Because this is dialogue, you just get these words all the time. Answered, asked, said, in various forms. So don't stress about it. Eratao, this verb here, it occurs 60 times in the New Testament, but we haven't come across it yet. It's an AW verb, not an EW verb, and we haven't noticed them yet. So, yeah, don't worry about it. Just move on.
So is it, and they answered him?
No, they asked him.
They asked him, sorry. They asked him and said to him.
Correct.
That's the word for what, is it?
Correct. But sometimes T can mean why as well. Why?
Why, therefore, you baptizing?
Why then are you baptizing?
If you you are not the Christ,
Good.
but not Elijah.
Or nor.
Nor
Neither.
Elijah.
Yep.
Oh, neither. Yeah, sure. Neither the prophet.
Good. So you can see the two A's in there, one without the accent across the top of it, just the smooth breathing. The other one with the smooth breathing plus the accent. And without, it means if, and with the accent, it means you are. So, and they asked him and said to him, why then are you baptizing if you are not the Christ, neither Elijah, neither the prophet? Good. Verse 26. Dad?
Apokryphe, autos,
Autois.
Ioannes, legon, ego, baptizo, on eudati,
N,
misos,
not on.
en eudati, misos,
Udati.
eudati, misos, eumon,
Humon.
es, esteken, on,
Hon.
eumes, oidate.
Okay. Are you struggling to see the breathings on the front of these?
Oh no, just the CH. I've trouble with that.
CH.
It looks like an X.
Okay. All right. But there's a lot of rough breathings here in this verse. For example, on the second line, it literally reads this: Humon, hestiken, hon, humes, oik, uk, oidata. So just remember to put an H on in the front of your pronunciation. So humon, not eumon, but humon and hon and humes. Okay.
And he answered them, and John answered them, saying,
yes, or literally we could say, we could translate it, and he answered to them. Altois is in the dative, but apokryphe, apokrynomai, it takes the dative. Whenever it's in a sentence, the object that follows it, it goes in the dative automatically. So you can translate it either John answered to them or John answered them. Keep on going.
Saying, I baptize.
Just stop a second there. Saying there, what form of verb is that?
That's a participle.
The participle ending in own. It's the simple participle masculine singular.
Yeah.
Good. John answered them saying,
I baptize in water. The middle of you is an aorist of the verb to stand.
Yes.
Stood.
It's actually the participle. It's actually the perfect, I think, with the K in the, so in the middle of you has stood. But oftentimes histemi, the verb to stand, is a bit its meaning is somewhat hard to remember. Sometimes it is perfect in form but present in meaning. So in the middle of you he stands. It's in the present tense, but we haven't learned about histemi yet, the verb to stand. It's one of a number of verbs where the perfect tense is actually translated in the present for reasons we'll go into later on, but don't worry about it at the moment. It's a new verb we haven't learnt yet.
The next word's a relative pronoun, whom you do not know.
Correct. And that word oida is again in the perfect, but it's got a present meaning. So this last sentence is all in the present tense. Midst you, he stands whom you do not know. Okay, so we haven't come across mesos yet, but you can see pretty clearly what the word is. We have our word meso in English. A mezzanine level is an in-between level, in the middle. Okay, good. 27, Ben.
Ho opiso mu erchomenos hu uk emi ego axios axios hina luso aututon himanta tu hupotimatos.
Good.
Whew.
So some of these words are words we're familiar with in here, some of them not. But anyway, have a go.
Okay. Opiso, is that after?
Correct. So the one after.
Oh yeah, mu. The one after
After of
erchomenos.
me. Yes. Erchomenos means coming. It's the it's the passive participle of erchomai. But erchomai is itself a sort of passive meaning, a passive verb. It has an active meaning, but it's passive force. So erchomenos is the participle of it. The one coming after me.
Who not I am. Who not I am
Axios? Yes, or it's just being used for emphasis there, isn't it? The word Amy already contains the meaning I am, but you can stick the pronoun on in front to make it emphatic. Of whom I am not.
Axios. I'm not sure
We've
I've
learnt
seen
this
that
word,
before.
haven't we? I'm sure we've done axios.
I don't think so.
Okay, maybe not. It means worthy. Of whom I am not worthy.
Okay. Hina. I can't remember that one. I've seen it before.
So that.
So that, okay. So that worthy.
No. You're going the wrong direction in the sentence now. After Hina is luso. What verb is luso?
That's loose.
Correct. Yes, axios we haven't
future.
come across yet. Sorry, it's a new word. I thought we might have learnt that, but we haven't come across that yet. So the one coming after me, of whom I am not worthy, that now luso, what form of luo do we have here?
Future.
It could be future. There is another form it could be. It wouldn't really make too much sense here, would it, if we put in the future tense? Of whom I am not worthy, that I will loose. It actually is the subjunctive here again, which we haven't learnt yet, but is a very nice mood. We will come to in a few lessons' time. And it literally means here, of whom I am not worthy, that I might loose. And the rest of the sentence here, we are going to struggle with a little bit. Himanta is something like strap, and hupodimatos means sandal.
Mm-hmm.
So that I might loose of him the sandal strap.
Oh, yeah. Not worthy to loose it. Yep.
Yeah. So don't worry about those pieces of vocabulary we haven't run into yet. There are a few other words in there. You did well with the relative pronoun at the beginning of the second clause, who. And let's move on. Last verse, 28, Dad.
Tauta on
N,
N.
not
Sorry.
French.
Tauta, yeah, my French. En Bethania,
Yep.
Egeneto Peran to Danon,
Jordan.
Danu Opu en Po Yanes Baptizon.
Good.
These things in Bethany happened
Yes.
on the other side of the Jordan,
Correct.
where John was baptizing.
Good. So egeneto of tauta is just the demonstrative pronoun. This, here it's the neuter plural. These things in Bethany. Egeneto means happened, and it's one of those 5 verbs on the back of the verb chart that I've shaded in blue. It happened. It's third person singular, aorist of ginomai. These things happened in Bethany. Peran means on the opposite side of the Jordan, on the other side of the Jordan. Hopu means where, as opposed to pu, which means where, question mark. Ein is the past tense of Eston, where he was, Ioannes, John, baptizon. That's the participle where John was baptizing. Good. All right. Any questions from any of those verses we've looked at there? Maybe there were some things you wanted to ask, but we've moved on from the verse. Any things you wanted to go back to?
There was something. Just can't find it right now.
In that last verse, in the authorized version, I think it's got Bethabara, hasn't it?
Yes. It's probably actually Bethany, I think. Let me just look up my Greek New Testament here in the original apparatus. 28. Bethabara. Yeah, it's not giving me enough information to tell. So, yeah, Bethabara or Bethania. That's just a variant which different manuscripts read different things. Okay. All right. So we're going to have a break for 2 weeks, and I would encourage you to, just for some revision purposes, try reading through John chapter 1, verses 1 to 18 again, just to work on your reading. But John chapter 1, verses 1 to 18 are probably a little bit easier than this passage we read tonight. This passage, because it's dialogue, it contains lots of words for he said, he asked, he answered. It contains quite a few pronouns, who and what. It contains quite a few demonstrative pronouns, this and these. So it's good translation practice for us. John chapter 1, 1 to 18 should probably be a little bit easier. We have done a bit of that before. But anyway, that'll do us for tonight, unless there are any other questions we want to talk about. How does everyone feel?
Yeah, the 2 weeks come good timing, I think. I just need to revise a fair bit of
Yep.
stuff we've
But
done recently.
you can see that apart from some weird vocabulary, we're able to identify a lot of things happening in those verses. And some of the things that are a bit difficult are just relative pronouns or demonstrative pronouns, that question words, like those indefinite pronouns, tis and t. And the more you read them, the more familiar you become with them. So it's just a case from now on, really, of getting into reading. That's how you get ahead in Greek. Once you've got most of the grammatical categories and you can recognize them vaguely, then it becomes a case of becoming more familiar through reading. Don't keep on reading grammar books. Read the book. And it becomes more familiar. You become more fluent, and it falls into place. All right. Good night, everyone. And we will see you in 3 weeks' time. Or
Thanks, Andrew.
3 Mondays' time. Okay. Good night.
Good night.